Clacton. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm David Lower. I'm from Paul's in Clacton and Arts in Holland. Here or so. I'm going to read one verse from the Bible and then say two. So, first of all, a reading from the Bible, Book of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. Lord God, we thank you for your promise to give wisdom and understanding to those who ask for it. We pray that you would give each one of us the wisdom we need as we meet together this evening. We thank you for the willingness of each of the council members to serve the people of Pendring District. Would you be pleased to bless this meeting with clear thinking, wise decisions, and unity in purpose? I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. The prayer for this week in the Church of England, what we call the Collect. O Lord, we beseech you mercifully to hear the prayers of your people who call upon you, and grant that they may both perceive and know things they ought to do, also may have grace and power faithfully to fulfill them. Through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who is alive and reigns with you, unity of the Holy Spirit, God, now and forever. Seated.
Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. I've had apologies for absence from Councillor Bush, Councillor McWilliams, Councillor Morrison, Councillor White and Councillor Cox. Thank you.
Item 2, minutes of the meeting from the Council, pages 7 to 28.
Chairman, I'm happy to move them.
Okay.
Happy to second, Chair.
Yep. All agreed? Declaration of interests, item 3. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll refer to item 12 on the agenda, which is talking about the winter fuel allowance. I have a mother who lives in Tendring, 85, who will lose this winter fuel allowance, and I'm sure there may well be other members in the same position, and there may even be members in this chamber who qualify as well. Thank you.
Refer to Lisa Hastings.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Council. Councillor Harris did actually speak to me before the meeting, and I agree that whilst the actual matter concerned might not necessarily fall under the definition within the Code of Conduct of non-registrable interests, it's probably a matter that does affect a number of you, either personally or members of your family and close associates. So for the record, I'm happy to grant a dispensation to all members so that they can discuss this item this evening.
Right, announcements by the Chairman of the Council. I did circulate a paper of what I've been up to and what I've been getting on, so I find it easy to do that. Just like to add to that I had a wonderful day It was Armed Forces Weekend at the fair. The wonderful Bill and his team. And I was there with the World War II veteran, Mr. James Goss, which most of us know. And we had a fabulous day there. He was, how would you say, very popular. We walked all the way around and they gave us a lovely meal afterwards, so it was a great day. Yeah. Right. Item 5, announcements by the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I formally report that on the 16th of September, and in accordance with the wish of the leader of the Tendering Independence Group, I exercised my delegated powers and appointed Councillor Bernie Goldman to serve on the Resources and Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee in the stead of Councillor Adrian Smith. Thank you.
Item 6, statements by the Leader of the Council, Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a brief one. As you've just heard from the Chief Executive, I have a new Cabinet member, Councillor Adrian Smith, and I'd just like to welcome him onto the Cabinet and thank Councillor Bush for all of his hard work over the past year.
Item 7, statements by members of the Cabinet. Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 announcements. Firstly, I'm delighted to announce that Tendring District Council has been awarded a silver level housing award in the prestigious RSPCA Paul Prince Awards. Those awards, the only scheme of its kind, celebrate local authorities and public bodies for their pioneering work in animal welfare across England and Wales. We have been recognised for our pet-friendly housing policies and support for responsible pet ownership among our council tenants. This award highlights our ongoing efforts to deliver top-class animal welfare services and our dedication to improving the lives of animals within our community. We take pride in the services we deliver to our residents, and I'm very proud of our team's work to win this award. Secondly, Chairman, on the 12th of September, there were 2 referendums held within the district, one in Ardleigh and one in Elmstead Market. Both are in relation to neighbourhood plans, which were prepared by both parish councils, submitted to the Planning Inspectorate as to their soundness, and then voted on by residents. The separate neighbourhood plans for the 2 villages have been developed by people living in the parishes. The plans are a way for communities to take a proactive approach to deciding the future of the places where they live. Once adopted, they have the same legal status as the district-wide local plan, and will be used alongside it in deciding planning applications that fall within its area. And Chairman, a lot of very hard work has been undertaken by those parish councils, supported by our excellent planning officers to get to this stage, and they are to be highly commended for doing so. I'm delighted to be able to say that residents in both Ardleigh and Elmstead have voted in favour of adopting the plans, and the formal reports will be presented to Cabinet in October, and I will be asking Cabinet on that day to adopt them. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Question 8, pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.1. There are none. Question 9, report to the Leader of the Council on urgent Cabinet portfolio holder decisions. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to move it.
Question 10, minutes of the committees, page 31 to 36. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just the one to move tonight, and I'm happy to move it.
All agreed? Question 11, motion to the Council pursuant to Council Procedure 12, proposals for community governance review of Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Javik Sands, pages 37 to 38. Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. Do you just need me to move it and then get a seconder?
Seconder. We got a seconder?
I'm happy to second that, Chair, and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. All those in favour?
Sorry, Councillor Chairman, can I just speak to my motion, please? Have I done it right or wrong?
Can you read it out, Mark, please? Okay.
Absolutely, Chairman. I did have it in my book, but I gave my book to somebody else, so bear with me a second. Thank you. Okay. Motion to council pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 12, submitted by myself in relation to community governance in Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick Sands. And I would like to that full council notes that A, parish and town councils are on an established and valued form of local democracy, an important role to play in both rural and urban areas. B, the district currently has 27 town and parish councils, the cumulative electorate of almost 75,000, that Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick are not currently parished. The cumulative electorate for those areas is almost 45,000. As such, around 62% of the residents have one of the 27 town and parish councils to represent them and their interests in a very local level. 38% of the district residents do not have that representation. Between 1891 and 1974, Great Clacton, later renamed Clacton, as it also covered Clacton-on-Sea, had its own specific tier of local government. And the area of this tier of local government was expanded in 1934 to take in the then former parish of Little Holland, later renamed Holland-on-Sea. Since 1974, with the abolition of Clacton Urban District Council and creation of this district council, there's been no distinct local council representation for specifically Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick. There's been more than 25 years since the electorates of Jaywick Sands last had chance to express their view on the issue of a parish for that town. If the nature responsibilities of local government has changed over the years, and in recent years there's been a distinct impetus to devolve power from Whitehall to local councils and communities that will further change that landscape. G, the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007 devolved the power to take decisions about matters such as the creation of parishes and their electoral arrangements to the district council for its area through a process called a community governance review, which has at its heart engagement with local people in the defined review area, and that representatives received in connection with the review are taken into by the district council. And two, request that proposals for a community governance review of Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick be prepared and submitted to the next ordinary meeting of the council to enable council to determine whether to proceed with such a review, timetable for review and the resourcing of such a review. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bay.
Chairman, can I now speak on it? So I was hoping today, Chairman, that this wouldn't be a very long motion, because all I'm really asking for is to request that the proposals for a community governance review of Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick be prepared and submitted to the next ordinary meeting of the council to enable the council to determine whether to proceed with such a review, the timetable for review and the resourcing of such a review, which is number 2 on the agenda. That's the important bit of that motion. Some people say, why are you doing it now? So it's a simple matter of timing. Doing a community governance review takes considerable time and effort. Starting it now, should it go ahead, will hopefully achieve an outcome that sees any new parish or town councillors voted in during the 2027 district elections, as is the current practice for all existing town and parish councils. As a side note, the 2007 Local Government and Public Involvement Health Act states principal councils should exercise their discretion, but it would be good practice for a principal council to consider conducting a review every 10 to 15 years, except in the cases of area with very low populations, less frequent reviews may be adequate. But I think it's safe to say Clacton and surrounding areas are well overdue. As the preamble notes, there is a current ethos of devolving power down through the local government levels through devolution, which, with the right deal, I encourage. There is also, however, murmurings of local government reform on the back of these devolution deals, which could see the removal of the district level of local government. If such a thing were to happen, Clacton, Jaywick and Holland would be left with no local voice, and that would be totally unacceptable. If my motion is passed tonight, I will also ask officers to engage with ward councillors and arrange an all-member briefing, set some time aside to hear the thoughts of councillors ahead of any motion to full council. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank the Leader of the Council for a well-put proposal there. I'm not a Clacton councillor, so as such I'm not directly affected. However, we have a Clacton councillor in our group who has indicated that he's very supportive of what you're suggesting, and therefore, after discussion, can confirm we will support. I would like one small clarification, if you could, for us. Will you be looking at one town council for all three areas, three, or will you be looking at all options? That's the only thing I'd ask. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor Paul Hollywood.
Thank you, Chairman. I was a little surprised to see this motion come forward at this particular time. I have a number of concerns or issues about it. Firstly, obviously, to deliver this programme, to put such a council in place, takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of resources. I realised that from when we conducted the District Council boundary review. So I suppose my first concern is, does this council have the resources to do this over this electoral term, considering the amount of work that we're currently doing? Secondly is the cost. What will the cost be to this council to deliver that? Because if I remember correctly, the cost will come from this council. I think Councillor Bryars touched on communities. Communities is something that's taken into consideration with these proposals. We have Jaywick Sands, Holland and Clacton. Are we talking about one council to cover all? I remember before when we discussed it unofficially, Jaywick residents that I spoke to in particular were concerned that if it was one council for all, they would be very marginalised. They just would not have the votes to deliver. And so those that supported the principle were in effect against it because they felt their voice wouldn't be heard. And then obviously timing, as I said, there's a lead in on that. So I do have a number of concerns and issues about this happening at this time. So my personal view is that I will abstain from the vote on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Chris Griffiths. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as you're probably aware that for many years I've been an opponent of any sort of local sort of what I see as devolution, because I never really saw the need when you had an MEP, county councillors and district councillors, why we would need to introduce yet another tier of local government, all paid for by the taxpayer. I have to say that my view has changed over the last 2 or 3 years, because when you look at the potential of local government reorganisation, mergers of district councils, for example, Colchester and Tendring, would very, very badly leave Clacton exposed with limited democratic representation. On this basis, I welcome the review, but there has to be a few caveats with it. One, at the end of it, any decision has to be put to the people of Jaywick, Holland and Clacton, so that they make the ultimate decision on whether or not they elect 1 or 3 councils, and at the end of it, have to foot the bill through local taxation for paying for it all. I also think that there are questions over costs, which I think we need to consider, and also resourcing. So I look forward to the new paper coming through. I look forward to the members' briefing, and hopefully we'll see what comes forward in the coming months and see how see what the decision is. But my ultimate is that at the end of it all, the people of Clacton, Holland and Jaywick must decide whether they want this extra tier and the costing that goes with it, and it mustn't be fostered on them from above, because I don't believe that as a council we have a right to suggest to other people and our residents that they ought to have another tier of local government for the next 30 or 40 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Gary Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I will be supporting this motion because it brings local democracy back right down to the low level of any local authority. I represent a rural ward in the Western District, and we have, in my ward, I have 4 parish councils, and they are regularly attended by residents of my villages that I represent. They come along, they feel they're being listened to, they come and speak to parish councillors in our wards. People feel they want to talk to their parish chairman and their parish councillors. Also, with parish councils, we can find external funding. We can apply for grants and we can get things in for our areas. The parish councils in my area of Alresford and Elmsted have recently had, as Councillor Baker said, a neighbourhood plan just been voted upon last week. It was a proactive approach. Local people had an effect. They had influence. They voted for a neighbourhood plan in their area. People feel they have some involvement in having a parish council in their area. So here in Clacton, Jaywick and Holland-on-Sea, people will have the same opportunities to have a town council in their areas to bring things to the local level. People in their street can speak to other people in their street and talk about an issue. And I think it's a positive. It really is a positive. And the benefits of having a town and parish council will bring external funding in. People will look to our area. And there's other town and parish councils that have had neighbourhood plans. Mine in Alresford, Elmsted Market, Ardley. There are other wards, other areas that are going to have a neighbourhood plan. So the benefits of having a town council in Clacton, Jaywick and Holland-on-Sea are so, so great, and will bring a huge lot of benefit to those 3 communities. And I will welcome the review, and I hope councillors do support Councillor Stevenson's motion. Thank you.
Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chairman. As many of you know, I used to represent Rush Green, an area within Clacton, now part of the Blue House area. And in those times, I was a bit ambivalent about the whole idea of having a town council. Since then, I've moved over to Frinton, a member of Frinton and Walton Town Council, and I can see the valuable work that town councils do, particularly working with their community. And so therefore, from that point of view, my view has changed somewhat to become that I think that it would be a good idea for Clacton to have a town council. I also have questions in my mind about whether it should be 3 councils or 1, and I think that needs to be discussed as part of the deliberations of Cabinet. But other than that, I think this is a very good idea, and I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree everything that Councillor Griffiths said, but I will put on record that the only way I will actually agree to vote for this eventually will be if the people have their say in the referendum. I think they should have the say, not us. Thank you.
Councillor Carrie Doyle.
Whilst I support the review going through, could I just ask that? Can I just ask that the people that are doing the review bear in mind that within those 3 areas, there are some areas of great wealth and some areas of great deprivation? And will that be reflected in the finances that each or the one parish council have? I just would ask that that's borne in mind the review is being done. Thank you.
Ms. Terry Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this to be a good and positive motion. At its heart, it's looking to extend democracy. At its heart, it's getting people involved more at a local level. I couldn't imagine Lawford, Manningtree and Mistley without its town council and parish councils. The individuals that sit on those councils are woven into the fabric of the local community. They do lots of good stuff. And as a collective, the parish council and towns councils do lots of initiatives. It's not all about overflowing bins and dog poo. In fact, sometimes it can be about a beach and sand. And yes, Manningtree has a beach. Never has the need been greater to involve local people more and extend democracy across Tendring. Participation in our elections are too low. The very elections that brought us here, councillors, had a turnout of 29.5%. Blue House by-election was just 14.6%. We must do everything we can in our power to make sure we engage local people more and get them involved. This is a starting process to give people a choice, opening up this tier of local government, and I fully support this motion.
Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of you may remember that this came before this council twice in the last 8 or 9 years, and I voted against it both times. I'll admit that, I'll own that, but you're allowed to change your mind. And I think it's the right time. I understand there are concerns. I have them. But it's the right thing to do at the right time. And all we're asking, or what Councillor Stevenson is asking tonight, is that we ask that some preliminary work be done, that then be brought back to this council for us to debate it in full. And I would ask all of us to support the motion. Local people, as everybody has said, have to have a local voice. And some of them don't feel they have that. Parish council, having been a parish councillor at Lawford, you're embedded in the community. You know the people of your community. I don't know all my residents in East Cliff Ward. Parish councils are that conduit to us and further up. So I would ask you all to fully support the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Anya Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very lucky to sit on 3 parish councils as a district councillor and as a parish councillor. Ramsey and Parkston, Raveness and Bradfield. They aren't as well attended as Gary Scott's ones. I'm not sure quite why. We don't offer biscuits. But I do agree that people do and can come to our parish council meetings. Parish councillors are very proactive in the area on all 3 councils, and I'm really, really grateful that I sit on those councils. It helps the job as a district councillor make it easier. You're aware of the issues before you come to council, and they look to you to give them the information from council. So I actually really appreciate that. And I was part of Harwich Town Council, which I was very proud of as well. Again, doing an incredibly good job for the people of Harwich. So I am going to support this motion because I think a review to see if the people of those areas want that kind of level of local governance is a good thing and a right thing at this time.
Councillor Thompson.
Hello, I'd like just to say that I'm for the motion. There's quite some concerns because this has been brought forward to the residents before in West Clacton and James Sands, and they was not for this idea. But I definitely think further consideration and consultations need to happen to give them another chance. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members. I got the general feeling that there's some support there for this motion. I'll address a few of the issues raised. I think the first one was raised by Councillor Bray and Everett included, and Councillor Honeywood, when we talked about whether it was going to be 1, 3 or more, what would it be out? That is actually part of exactly what I'm asking for. The Community Governance Review will look at all options and present them to us. Councillor Honeywood, you talked about resources. I believe we do, and we talked about the cost. That's exactly what the report is aimed for. That's what I'm asking for today. If it comes back horrendous and horrible, then we probably won't do it. But, you know, we need to bring that forward to see what the costs and everything else are. Councillor Griffiths, I take on board all of your points. And I think there's an overwhelming theme around, you know, people have got concerns, but this is part of the Community Governance Review. And if we go ahead tonight, I'm not going to make an assumption just yet, that we go ahead with this report. In the lead up to the report in November, we can have a good few conversations around what it will mean, what it will be, and we can have an all-member briefing along those lines. And I'll also take on points from Councillor Doyle. And that once again, I'll say that the Community Governance Review will take into consideration demographics and of the areas when it's deciding what the boundaries should be. I'll be honest, I don't know what they would be, and I don't have a preference. But I would address the one voice that keeps coming through. 2007 Act, I thought it might come up. Under the 2007 Act, and this quote straight from it, the principal councils are required to consult both those local government electors in the area under review. People talked about the people having a say. There it is in black or white. And others, including the local authorities such as the county council, which appears to be the principal council to have an interest in the review. So I can say with some confidence that residents will have a say in what happens to them when it comes to this review. And I think I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? It's carried, thank you. Item 12, motion to the Council pursuant to the Council Procedure Rule 12, concern about the government's intention to cut the entitlement of winter fuel allowances, pages 39 to 40. Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item number 12, motion to Council pursuant to Council Procedure 12, Rule 12, submitted by myself, Peter Harris, in relation to the proposed cut to the winter fuel payment. I'll read the motion. A, this council notes that 1, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves MP, has indicated that the winter fuel payment will be cut completely from all pensioners except those receiving pension credits. 2, this will likely disproportionately affect the district of Tendring, as we have the highest average age population in the UK. 3, this removal has happened to coincide with the recent announcement by the Ofgem regulator that the fuel price cap has risen, resulting in bills increasing by 10% on average, meaning that some pensioners may be a reported £500 worse off when combined with the removal of the winter fuel payment. 4, many of our pensioners are already deeply concerned at these announcements and may worry about the affordability of winter fuel, and that, putting it simply, some may have to decide between heating or eating. B, therefore, this council requests that 1, the leader of Tendring District Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson, writes to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves MP, to request that the government rethink and halt its plan to cut winter fuel payment for pensioners. 2, the leader of the council also writes to Sir Bernard Jenkin MP and Nigel Farage MP to lobby their support for the urgent review of this government action. And 3, If the government carries out its intention to remove the winter fuel payment from pensioners, the leader of the council and the cabinet urgently review how Tendring District Council, with the inclusion of its partners and other local organisations, can offer support and advice to pensioners living in this district who may suffer or be in a position of fuel poverty or difficulty as a result of this government decision. Can I move this motion?
You got a seconder?
Second, Chairman, and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
Chairman, if I can explain and talk about the actual motion itself. Thank you. It was ironically introduced by Gordon Brown in 1997. It is an annual tax-free payment for pensioners designed to help cover the cost of heating in winter, paying up to £300 usually in November. Currently 12 million pensioners receive it. This government has decided to reduce this to 2 million, meaning 10 million pensioners will lose out. So how will this, so how many in Tendring District will lose out? In 2021, the census says that we have 43,900 pensioners living here. This represents 30% of our local population. 37,000 of our pensioners face losing out on this government cut. 71% of people with a disability who currently get winter fuel payment will lose it. This jumps to 83% for the over 80s, many of whom are veterans. Men like World War II veteran Jim O'Dwyer, who is approaching 100 years old. Jim flew in a Lancaster bomber on 31 missions over Nazi-controlled Europe as a rear gunner, the most dangerous position in the aircraft. He did so that we may enjoy our freedoms and our democracy today. He is an absolute hero and legend. And how does this government say thank you? It picks his pocket of £300. It's an absolute disgrace. So what will we say? Just 1.4 billion. Whilst they are spending 4 billion on hotels for illegal migrants, 9 billion pound on foreign aid, 11.6 billion on overseas climate fund, and 11 billion on public sector pay rises. A survey carried out by the Labour Party predicts 4,000 pensioners will die as a result of this policy. Yet they have still gone ahead with it. Absolutely disgraceful. Based on the numbers of this survey, it will mean that at least 15 pensioners will die in Tendring this winter as a direct result of this government policy. The problem is compounded by those who are just outside the limit for claiming pension credit, like this pensioner, Tendring pensioner, who received this government response. Your pension credit application was not successful. Unfortunately, you are not entitled to pension credit at this time. In May 2024, you were getting £221.20 state pension a week. To get the pension credit, your income must be less than £218.15 a week. So this pensioner in Tendring gets an extra 43 pence a day and £3.05 a week. This government thinks that this pensioner is wealthy and is not worthy of that £300. The problem is, so what can TDC do? Well, I'm not asking TDC to spend thousands of pounds. Instead, send their objections to the government and work with its partners, charities, organisations and business across our district to support our pensioners to prevent them from choosing between heating or eating this winter. We can signpost, we can inform, we can support our partners. I'll be very, very brief. We need to be proactive and facilitate a plan with the likes of the Health Alliance, Integrated Care Board, Essex County Council, Age UK, Older People's Forum, CVST, veterans groups, and organisations like the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, parish councils, and businesses as well. Members, I ask you to put aside your political allegiances. Support our pensioners, support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Honeyball.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to put forward an amendment to that motion, please.
Okay?
Thank you. Wish to add an additional point to the bottom, which will be number 4. It says, commit the council to signing the Save the Winter Fuel Payment for Struggling Pensioners petition being run by Age UK, and write to all members offering them the opportunity to sign the petition themselves. Thank you.
A seconder, please. Morris Alexander. Thank you, Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, Chairman, just as a reminder now, councillors, just if I may, is that the motion is now, you are now debating the amendment, not the substantive motion. This is the amendment. Thank you. You have got the motion mover, which wishes to speak.
Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like it noted that I would like to accept this amendment. Thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Bray.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Also happy to accept the amendment. Sorry. Thank you.
Members, in accordance with the policy, therefore, your substantive motion is now 1 to 3 plus 4, as Councillor Honeywood read out, which is actually on your desks, which is that one. So that is now your substantive motion for debating, unless you get a amendment, which obviously we have put on the table. So, Councillor Chairman.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I have an amendment. Would you like me to read it out? Yep. Okay. So the first part is as per the original motion. I'll go straight to B, and it says, therefore, this council requests that the leader of Tendring District Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson, writes to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves MP, to highlight the challenge for our residents, especially as the uptake of present pension credits is low. The leader of the council also writes to Sir Bernard Jenkin MP and Nigel Farage MP to lobby their support to encourage the take-up of pension credit as the uptake of pension credits is low. Following, number 3, following the government's decision to remove the winter fuel payment from pensioners not in receipt of pension credit, the leader of the council and his cabinet urgently review how Tendring District Council, with the inclusion of its partners and other local organisations, can offer support and advice to pensioners living in the district who may suffer or be in the position of fuel poverty or difficulty as a result of the government decision. Number 4, the availability of pension credit be promoted by the council and with partners to assist all those entitled. And number 5, the portfolio holder for partnerships to organise a briefing at the Older Persons Forum in November to raise awareness of pension credits. Thank you, Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that and reserve my right to reply.
Point of clarification, please.
Points of clarification.
Thank you, Chairman. The amendment that's just been put in seems to me to negate the original motion, which it shouldn't be able to do. The principal point of the original motion, as in point 1, is that the leader of the council will be asked to write to the Chancellor of the Exchequer to request that the government rethink and halt its plans to cut winter fuel payment for pensioners. Since that has been removed, the principal point of the original motion has been negated, and therefore I request that you make a ruling on that. Thank you, Chairman.
I'll take that under advice. Okay.
Chairman and members of council, the rule which Councillor Bray is referring to is Rule 16.5, which states that amendments are to include, leave out words, insert others, etc., so long as the above does not negate the motion. So that's the rule that Councillor Bray is asking you to consider, Chairman. I would say that officers were asked to give advice, wording of the amendment, before it was received. It was our view that it did not negate motion. However, in your role as chairman of the council under Article 5, 5.01, paragraph 1, it is your decision, chairman, to uphold and promote the purposes of the Constitution and to rule on the interpretation and the application of the Constitution as and when necessary at meetings. Chairman, it's your decision whether to accept the Second Amendment.
I accept the Second Amendment. Yep. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'll keep it brief. There's been some facts thrown around, and I heard the 30%. I also heard 27%. I had an email come in to me that claimed that 2,868 pensioners were not going to receive it in tendering. These are people who are not claiming pension credit, and that was an alarming figure for me. That's £6 million that is not coming through to our residents. These are people who are not claiming pension credit. And so I thought, how can we go about helping those residents? Now, you can sit there and say the Labour government has done this. This council can't change that. And to think that we will be able to change that is folly, in my opinion. You know, I haven't got a direct line to number 10, and I say, actually, no, I think you've got that wrong. Can you change it, please? Well, what we can do is we can look for residents who haven't claimed this, and we can make sure that as many residents as possible can stand there and claim these pensions. And we have to break down some of the problems, the reasons why people don't clear it. There's stigma, people have got pride. We need to break those barriers down, lack of awareness, all those sort of things. And I think it's really important that we go after all those 2,800 residents who haven't claimed the pension credits. And I think that's really where I want to leave it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Jeff Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm, I'm speaking to the amendment. I believe that's correct. I'm deeply concerned about this, and I take on board the words of the Leader of the Council, and of course, I would support his efforts to get anyone who's entitled to pension credit to claim it. We're talking about a substantial number of people who are just over the threshold for pension credit, and the amendment before us mentions pension credit several times. What it doesn't do is mention the people who don't qualify for pension credit by, in some cases, just a few pounds a year. And I can highlight one of those cases because he's talking to you. In next year, next December, I reach retirement age. I know my pension amount because I've done my pension forecast, as I suspect many people do. My amount will be £811 a month. Unfortunately, I was silly enough to put some money into a very small private pension, which gives me another £180 a month. I will be £32 over per year and therefore would not qualify for pension credits. As a result of that, I will not be able to heat my home. But let me be really clear. While this is very, very good and excellent for getting people to claim the benefits to which they're entitled, there are many people who will not be entitled and will be hurt. And I mean really hurt. Because let's be clear, knowingly and willingly, whatever your political persuasion, whatever you think of the current government, it doesn't matter. Whatever colour your rosette is, 348 Labour MPs willingly and deliberately voted for something that, according to their own analysis, will result in the death of 4,000 of our most vulnerable people. So to withdraw using the amendment, a request for the Chancellor of the Exchequer to halt and reconsider is appalling. How could you possibly want to do that? To not ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer not to make this cut, knowing that it will result, according to the Labour Party's figures, in 4,000 deaths. How can any one of us, whatever your party, whatever you, and I appreciate this is uncomfortable for some other councillors, and I apologise for them, because I know these councillors here, and I know that there is no one person in this chamber who would deliberately and willfully see that happen. So I ask you, can you really, really support the amendment, given that it doesn't ask for this to halt and desist? Please, think carefully. Thank you.
Councillor Tanya Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. All I want to speak to is point 5 of the amendment, the portfolio holder for partnerships to organise a briefing at the Older Persons Forum in November to raise awareness of pension credits. I think that's going to be too late. Is there any chance that the portfolio holder could bring that meeting forward? Because I'm aware that pension credits are taking an awful time to get through now because people are claiming, and I just wondered if that would be at all possible. Because if you do it in November, pension, the money comes out in November, and quite a lot of people will miss out. So that is at all possible. I'd appreciate it.
Councillor Chris Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I acknowledge that the idea of having road shows to help our pensioners on they're not claiming to claim pension credits is a good idea. And at one level, I commend Councillor Stevenson for doing it. I think that it's something that we need to do, and anything which helps boost elder people's finances should be encouraged. Sadly, though, I think the amendment sadly loses the point. We've already heard from Councillor Bray how by being just a few pounds over, it means that you're not entitled to pension credit. So therefore, you lose your winter fuel allowance. We have many of our people that are just above the breadline, who over the last few years have been facing increasing financial hardship and are struggling. It's my view that whatever colour politically you are, we should acknowledge that. And the initial amendment is hopefully trying to say to the Chancellor and those who make the decisions, look, there are those people in our community that are struggling, that are facing real hardship, and for many of them it is actually a choice between heating and eating. Now, I acknowledge that there are some people that are entitled to it and through pride don't want to take charity or feel that they've failed or don't feel comfortable. And for those people, winter fuel payments are a lifeline. I accept that when we can look at that, we can look back and we can blame the previous government for what they may or may not have done, and that they may or may not be at fault for the current situation. But the real problem is that people are suffering now, and what the government has done has not helped this situation. So I would urge you, when you're looking at this, to accept the original amendment, to accept that we have problems here in our community, and maybe just to give the government a little bit of a nudge and say, come on, let's be honest, there's lots of people, many of them are pensioners, some of them are veterans that have served this country for years and paid taxes. And in my view, to take their £300 at this stage of life is mean and uncaring, and I would urge the party opposite and this council to send that message, because that's what I believe our pensioners deserve. Thank you.
Harry, speak. Stay seated if you want.
Thank you, Chair. I have a point of clarification. And, excuse me, I've greatest respect for what Councillor Griffiths has just said, but may I just ask for clarification? When he has referred to supporting the original amendment, Am I not right in thinking the original amendment has been accepted by the original proposer and seconder and is now actually part of the original motion?
Okay, members, can I just clarify exactly where you're up to? And I noted what Councillor Griffiths said and Councillor Calver's just questioned. It's absolutely right. So the original motion was the one which is in your book. There was then a motion, then there was an amendment put by Councillor Honeywood, which was accepted by the proposer and the second. That became the substantive motion. You then had an amendment from Councillor Stevenson, which is as per that, which effectively took out, because that's not on there, Councillor Honeywood's, because that became part of the substantive motion, that took that out. So therefore, the only thing at the moment, as an amendment on the table, is the one which is headed Agenda Item 12, Amendment to Motion, to be moved by Councillor Mark Stevenson, which is what you are debating at the moment. If that is then voted down, then you revert back to the motion, which is including the substantive motion which accepted Councillor Honeywood's motion. If you vote for it, that becomes a substantive motion without Councillor Honeywood's accepted one which was in there for it. I hope that clarifies it. Oh, 1 second. Yeah. And before you go to the vote, just to be clear, before you go to the vote, I will read out the whole motion again so you know exactly what you're voting on. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Hayward.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to start by not speaking in my own words, but the words of Age UK. Cutting the winter fuel payment this winter with virtually no notice and no compensatory measures to protect poor and vulnerable pensioners is the wrong policy decision. We believe as many as 2.5 million pensioners who find paying their energy bills a real stretch will be seriously hit by this cut. Those on low incomes who just miss out on pension credit, those with high energy needs because of disability or illness, the 1 million who don't receive the pension credit for which they are eligible. Now, I notice this motion that's being put forward by the administration tries to say, well, yeah, we're going to try and help, we're going to encourage people. And one of the things it says is, the leader of the council also writes to Sir Bernard Jenkin MP and Nigel Farage MP to lobby their support to encourage the take-up of pension credit as the uptake of pension credits is low. It'd be interesting to hear from those proposing this what suggestions they're going to give to those MPs on how they can increase the take-up. Be quite interesting to hear. Now, to me, this motion does negate. I know we're playing with words, but it does. One of the things Councillor Stevenson said is, we cannot change what the government's decided. Yep, he's right. We can't. We can write. But what we can do is have the courage to stand up and say, we don't agree with this, we're supporting our residents, and here's a letter confirming that we don't agree with it. Will they listen? Well, probably not. But we've done the right thing by our residents by writing to say we disagree. So that's where I have a real problem with this. It's an attempt to water it down, to say, well, we don't want to actually upset the government. We don't want to say any hurty words to the government. So we'll tone it down and we'll just point out that it's not very nice, rather than say we're against it. I find that a rather poor show, and that's why I really don't like this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I mean, I'm quite shocked by this amendment, I must admit. I find it gutless. I think that we are, as Councillor Honeywood has said, we're not standing by our residents. And in my original motion, you know, I said in point 3 that we request that the leader of the council and his cabinet urgently review how Tendring Council, with the inclusion of its partners and other organisations, can offer the support and advice. Well, the support and advice will also be on pension credits. You have your free rein, really, to do that. You just use your common sense as to advise pensioners. But those pensioners that are not claiming pension credits are a small part of the issue. I showed you that or read it out. I'll hold it up so it's all clear. I've scribbled on little bits of it, but there it is. There is a letter from the government sent to me by a resident, one of my residents. I'll read it again, just so it's absolutely clear. Dated the 23rd of August, 2024. Your pension credit application was not successful. Unfortunately, you are not entitled to pension credit at this time. You asked us to consider your application from May 24. In May 24, you were getting £221.20 state pension a week. To get pension credit, your income must be less than 218. So this resident here doesn't get a pension credit because he's wealthy. He gets an additional 43 pence above the limit. Wow. This pensioner gets £11,343.80 a year. He's wealthy. These are the people that it's going to hurt. These are the people. It's not too late. We hear Age UK, the largest charity in the country, that are going to are still fighting for this, and I've put together petitions. The Labour Party's largest donor, Unite Union, have put together a motion at their conference to stop this from happening. Because I've spoken with Labour members, and many of them, and Labour supporters, are actually ashamed that this is going on. I mean, who on earth would have thought that one of the first things that the Labour Party would ever do is to screw our pensioners? Absolutely disgraceful. So, and then we look at the World War II veteran who, because of a small pension, takes him over this limit, nearly 100 years old, served his country. And again, he won't be able to claim any of this. He's not one of these people that can claim pension credit. This is one of the first councils that are going to debate this. There's going to be councils all over the country doing this. Have some balls, stand up for residents. Next time you knock on one of the pensioners' door when you ask for their vote, remember this, remember tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Richard Everett.
Thank you, Chairman. What is this piece of paper? It's an amendment. It's a fig leaf. It's a whitewash. Try and keep unity over there. I think some of you actually do have the humility to understand that actually voting for this is just supporting a Labour government. And I don't think all of you are actually very comfortable with that. So this amendment is just that fig leaf. It is nothing more. I also think that it's hardly legal. Despite the view of the monitoring officer, I will take legal advice after this as to whether this does in fact negate the original motion. But that will be the story for another day. Thank you.
Councillor Gary Carver. City Gary, thank you.
Thank you. Am I there? Yep. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Everett has just said that he believes that many people over here are not comfortable with this amendment. I'll tell him something that I think all of us over here are very uncomfortable with, and that's reform with the backing of the Conservatives trying to bring a Westminster debate into the chamber of Tendring District Council. And I should point out to Councillor Honeywood, he said, we should, even if it's not going to make any difference, we should have the courage to tell the government what we think. Had the opposition in this chamber taken that approach over the last 14 years, we would have been seeking to send letters to the government at every meeting over government decisions taken at Westminster. That is not the purpose of this council. The purpose of this council is to do what it can for its residents. Decision has been taken. This council will not change it, but we may be able to help promote the need for everybody to seek pension credit if they are entitled to it. That is the role of this council, not to play Westminster party politics in this chamber. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ivan Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's been mentioned about Gordon Brown, it's been mentioned about the previous Labour government, and I'd just like to remind people that I was part of that previous Labour government and just remind you of some of the things that that previous Labour government did from 1997. It lifted 1.9 million pensioners out of poverty. It introduced free travel for every pensioner throughout the country. It gave free TV licence for over 75s for every pensioner, which was changed under the Conservatives, that only pensioners on pension credit now get those free TV licences. It gave free eye tests to 6.6 million pensioners who had to pay for their eye tests, who weren't able to have health checks, especially for glaucoma, to actually see some of those health issues. It reduced VAT on fuel to the lowest rate of 5%. It introduced minimum income guarantee, which then changed to pension credit. I was involved in that. And what we did was, for minimum income guarantee, we changed the pension credit to bring more pensioners in so they got that funding. And yes, it did reduce all the waiting lists in hospitals because of the money that we provided to reduce those waiting lists from 300,000. Now, I find it a bit rich, actually, for people to get really excited over there when they're talking about welfare benefits, because from 2016, what members of the public want to remember is there was a 4-year freeze on all working age security payments, which was introduced. That affected 11 million people. Overall, 13 million. And the members opposite, Councillor Bray, Councillor Harris, Councillor Everett, Councillor Honeywood, were all members of the previous Tory government. They all supported the Tory cuts. They all supported the crisis which we had in that government. They all supported this trust budget which was brought forward, which actually put £30 billion hole in our expenses. They all supported a £60 billion hole in the budget of those things. Now, I'm going to go back to what we're really here for.
Can we have order, please? Thank you.
I'm going to go back to what we're really here for. When I was MP here, instead of travelling to other countries, I stayed here supporting my pensioners. And I had surgeries where I brought in pension services to come in to help them claim their pension credit. And there was pensioners going out there with smiles on their faces, realising that they were then entitled to those payments. What we're saying is the most important thing we can do for the most vulnerable pensioners in this country now, or in Tendring, the 2,886, is make sure we do whatever we can to make sure they gain the £3,000 a year more that they could possibly be entitled to by getting them on pension credit. I'm not going to take the talk from the members opposite when they were part of a government that put this country in the mess it's in now. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start. I'm going to go with this is just politics for me, Chairman. You know, I didn't receive one single email from anybody in this council asking me to write to anybody in government when this was being proposed by the Labour government. Not one person decided that they should take it upon themselves to write to me and say, Mark, I think we should do something. Only after the decision has been made do we wait until we get to a full council. Very, very apt that it's a theatre, and we play out this drama. You know, I'm disappointed that it has happened in many ways, and I don't disagree with some of the things that have come about, but we are talking about the residents of Tendring, and you have your position and I have mine. Now, my position is I have 2,870 residents who are claiming nearly £4,000 worth of pension credits, whilst the opposition would like me to write a letter. I want those residents to get that. I want to focus my energy and my time in making sure those residents get what they're entitled to. Because I can tell you what, people who aren't entitled to the pension credits, no matter where the line is drawn, I am sorry they aren't, but I did not set these rules. This council did not set these rules. And we should be helping the residents up now rather than writing bits of paper and holding up tiny little props to give our impressions of what we're trying to do. What we're talking about here is action, not words. But I will say one thing, Councillor Honeywood, your amendment, I overlooked it. I didn't know it was coming. What I am prepared to do, regardless of whether my motion goes through or not, is I will write to every member of this council and give them the link to save the winter fuel payment. I can't support it at the moment because I have no idea what it says. For all I know, it could say something completely outrageous and I can't endorse it. But I will make sure that this council, under my cabinet, will send that link out to all 48 of us, and it will be up to each individual councillor to decide whether they want to sign up to that petition or not. I think I'm done, Chairman. I think we've played this out long enough.
Come to the vote.
So, members, as I said, I will just read out to be absolutely clear what your vote on. This is the amendment, which becomes the substantive motion. The amendment is the Leader of the Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson, writes to the Chancellor of this Exchequer, Rachel Reeves MP, to highlight the challenge for our residents, especially as the uptake of pension credits is low. Leader 2, the Leader of the Council, writes to Sir Bernard Jenkin MP and Nigel Farage MP to lobby their support to encourage the take-up of pension credit as the uptake of pension credits is low. Following the Government's decision to remove the winter fuel payment from pensioners not in receipt of pension credit, the Leader of the Council and his Cabinet urgently review how Tendring District Council, with the inclusion of its partners and other local organisations, can offer support and advice to pensioners living in this district who may suffer or be in the position of fuel poverty or difficulty as a result of this Government decision. The availability of pension credit be promoted by the Council and with partners to assist all those entitled. 5, the portfolio holder of partnerships to organise a briefing at the Older Persons Forum in November to raise awareness of pension credits. That is the motion before you.
All those in favour?
Name vote, please.
Could we have a name vote, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
And pass the Chief Executive's a name vote. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I wasn't standing for the name vote. I was standing to do the vote, as the monitoring officer just pointed out to me. Okay, members, I will say, remembering as it is for or against the amendment, that I will say your name, please say whether you're for, against or abstain. Councillor Alexander.
Against.
Councillor Amos.
Against.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Barry.
For.
Councillor Ben Sillam.
For.
Councillor Bray. Against. Councillor Calver. Councillor Casey. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Codling.
Against.
Councillor Andrea Cozzens.
Against.
Councillor Mark Cozzens.
Against.
Councillor Davidson.
For.
Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Everett. Against. Councillor Fairley. Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Fowler.
For.
Councillor Goldman. Councillor Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Guglielmi. Councillor Harris.
Against.
Councillor Ivan Henderson.
For.
Councillor Joe Henderson.
For.
Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Against.
Councillor Sue Honeywood. Councillor Land. Councillor Newton. Councillor Oxley. Councillor Placey.
For.
Councillor Platt. Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Skills. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Steady.
For.
Councillor Gemma Stevenson.
For.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
For.
Councillor Sudra.
For.
Councillor Talbot.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Turner.
Against.
Councillor Wiggins.
For.
Thank you, members. Thank you, members. The result is for the amendment, 25. Against the amendment is 18, and it is therefore carried. That now becomes your substantive motion, which you will now be debating, unless you have further amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Everett.
I believe I'm debating the whole as amended motion. One of the largest...
Sorry, Councillor Everett, you're absolutely right. I will double check that everybody is quite clear. That's a good point. So now, as per what is in front of you, that is what you're voting on. And as I read out, that is what you're debating now. That is now your substantive motion, which is before you. That is what you just passed as the amendment, which became your substantive motion.
Thank you. One of the largest concentrations of people over 65 anywhere in the country. Labour in government. Lots of promise, but the reality has been somewhat different. Without any warning, or even being mentioned during the election campaign, Rachel Reeves has stolen pensioners' winter fuel allowance. My nearly 90-year-old mum, labelled a right-wing thug, by the way, according to Labour, living up north, a colder part of the country, will be choosing between having the heating on and eating. This is not what she expected from a Labour government. My son, a Labour councillor in Kings Lynn, must be aghast at his grandma being forced to choose between heating and eating. And it's certainly not what he was campaigning for in the general election. My father is a former member of our armed forces. It is unacceptable that Labour repay our veterans who fought in wars for us by taking away their winter fuel payment. So taking money away from pensioners at the same time as Lady Starmer is brought expensive dresses by Lord Alley. Perhaps Lord Alley could donate clothing to our pensioners to keep them warm. Perhaps this might be a more appropriate donation than paying for expensive dresses for the Prime Minister's wife. And now I turn to the administration of this council. I have a question for you all. How do you feel about the Labour tail wagging the independent dog? The leadership of the administration by Labour does not sit well with many of you. Some of you have indicated to me privately that you are against Labour's plans, but will you be tacitly accepting those plans for the sake of unity in this chamber? Alternatively, will you be honest enough and have the honour and integrity to show your opposition to these Labour plans to steal the winter allowance payments from our pensioners? The political reality is here, the Labour government has decided to defecate on our pensioners from a great height. What can we do as a council to support those same pensioners and clean up the mess that your Labour colleagues have created? How do we help our pensioners to get through a winter with increased energy costs and cuts in money to pay for them? So someone on a six-figure salary, the Prime Minister's wife, needs help with buying her clothing. But pensioners do not warrant the same consideration to buy warm clothing to survive the winter. To use another councillor's oft-used saying, I'm disgusted.
Councillor Gary Carver, proceed, please, Gary.
Right, thank you, Chair. And may I, excuse me, may I say thank you very much, Councillor Everett, because at last we have seen some honesty from that side of the chamber, that this is nothing more than a cynical political manoeuvre to try and cause difficulties within this coalition administration. And by your speech, you have just shown every one of us this side of the chamber that that's exactly the game that is being played. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of my administration colleagues. It's not going to work. We are proud of this administration. We are proud already of the way our cabinet is performing and what it is already delivering on behalf of the residents of the Tendring district, which is our priority, and we will continue to do so united. Thank you, Chair.
And to Peter Harris.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, there's a word, proud. Really? You're telling me that each and every one of you sitting over there are proud to actually support this motion, support a motion which has basically, we wanted to tell the government exactly what we thought and to stand up for our residents. What on earth are you going to say when you knock on people's doors asking for their vote and their pensioners, or they've got grandfathers or grandmothers, and it was this administration that voted to not fight for our residents? What will you do when other councils vote to object to this? What will you do if actually the Unite Union are successful at the Labour Party conference? Councillor Stevenson seems to think that it's an either or. You know, you can't have, of course you do everything you can to get residents to sign up for the pension credit. Of course. But sorry to label the point, what about residents like this? What about residents like this? What about residents like this that your party, Councillor Henderson, has said is going to die? Your party, the only way that you're going to keep residents warm is by sending them to the crematorium. That's what you're going to do. It's outrageous. Your party said 4,000 are going to die. Absolutely, it is a disgrace. And you should have come in at the... And you should have...
Thank you.
No, yeah, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. You're not standing up for residents, and I think it's appalling.
Councillor Curry-Dawes.
Can I just ask the opposition, how many times over the last years did you stand up? Did you write to your Tory government? Did you actually represent our people? Because, to be fair, our people shouldn't have this type of goings on in council. We're here to absolutely represent them at the coalface. How dare you bring party political conversations into this chamber? I am absolutely appalled, especially by the three people that jump parties at every opportunity just to get their own faces on the television or stand beside their local MP. Shame on you.
Tanya Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this has degenerated into something that it shouldn't be. I think we should stop this right now and just get on with the vote, because quite frankly, nothing good is going to come out of this parrying. And I really think it's wrong to go this side, that side. We're all entitled to our own opinions. Just because we sit on this side of the chamber does not necessarily mean that we feel exactly the same way as others. Now, please, for the love of crikeys, can we stop? This is not going to help our pensioners. This is not going to change the government. And this is not good for this council. And that's what I'm disgusted about. We need to stop now, please.
Councillor Mark Stevenson. That's what I had, so I didn't see Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Chairman. I concur, Councillor Ferguson, 100%. I'm sorry that people feel that when I described my own personal situation, I was being political. I really wasn't. That is my own personal situation. I'm sorry you don't agree. I'm sorry that you don't believe that we should tell the government when they've done something wrong, because they've done something wrong. I think everybody in the country knows that. And I think as representatives of the people of our district, we should tell them that. However, democratic vote has been taken and a decision has been made. And in this time-honoured tradition of democracy, I accept that. Reluctantly, I think you're wrong. I think you've made a mistake, and I think you've stonewalled. And you can stonewall us here. You have the numbers, you have the majority. You may find it more difficult to stonewall the people of Tynedale. So I do agree with Councillor Ferguson. It is degenerating, and it's a shame. I don't want to see pensioners used as a political football. I'm nearly one myself, and I'd be a terrible political football. Honestly, I don't need kicking about. But I do take issue with being told I've made political points. I raised my particular personal circumstances. I explained what they are and why this amendment will do nothing for me and the thousands of people like me who are in the position they are. I'm sorry I wasn't clear about that. That's what I intended to do. That's what I tried to make people understand. Clearly, they didn't understand. They voted the other way. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the harm that will happen to our pensioners. And I agree, it's highly likely that the government won't listen to us. Probably not. But we represent the people, and just because people won't listen to us doesn't mean we should stop representing them. So I will accept the decision that's been democratically voted for. Of course I will. I'm a councillor, I'm democratically elected. We all are. Many of us by the very people who will be affected by these changes. I hope now we can just calm down and relax. But I am disappointed. I do find it extremely disappointing that our administration felt that the government shouldn't be told when they've done something wrong. Because I don't believe that there are many people in this country who don't believe that the government done something wrong. And they're not the first. I, as has been pointed out, previously sat with the previous government, and yes, they've done something wrong. How many times did I write to them? More times than I can count. All different members of the party I was a member of, I wrote to regularly. I still have the letters. There are dozens, and they weren't always complimentary. So, thank you anyway, Chairman. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say that over the last 20 years, I've written to many people in government, which hasn't always made me the most popular person over this side of the room, and I haven't always supported government policy. But tonight it's not really about what members of the Cabinet's wives may be wearing or where it came from. It's not really about making political points or holding up bits of paper. It's about the realisation that we have certain people who are just above the legal limit for credits and are losing money on their winter fuel payments. It's about the hardship that members of our community are facing, and it's how we as local representatives react to that. And all basically we've asked the Leader of the Council to do on our behalf is to acknowledge that there are some of our people that are struggling, that there are some of our people that are in trouble, and we've just asked the Leader of the Council just to nudge them and say, look, when you make the decisions, just remember that there are some people that aren't that rich, that aren't that poor, that fall just above that line, and the policies that you're pushing are hurting them. Now, we can get all carried away over deaths and numbers, but let's remember that when we knock on the door to our own communities, it's the people that we live with that are taking the brunt of that. And as councillors, we represent those people. And do you know what? It doesn't matter whether it's Labour, Conservative or reforming government. We're there to represent those people in all times. And all we've asked you to do as a Cabinet is just acknowledge that and write to government. And I'm sorry it's got party political, because I don't believe that helps our community. But unfortunately, the issues are still there and they won't go away. So I would urge you that maybe if we get another occasion when these sort of things come that hurt vulnerable members, that we have the courage to stand up for the people that we're elected to represent. And that shouldn't really matter whether we're the same colour as the government or not. Believe me, I spent years writing against my own government and I'm still here. Thank you.
Councillor Ivan Henderson. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I wasn't really going to speak on this debate, but from what I've heard from the other side, I have to express my bitter personal disappointment at some of the things that have been said over there. I think the Labour government has made a mistake. I really do. But I don't think the way to capitalise on that is to make emotive statements about this side of the house, this side of this room, killing pensioners. I think that was disgraceful and should be withdrawn. I think it's appalling. I remember during the COVID times when we worked together, we were unanimous in a lot of the things that we discussed, a lot of the decisions we made, and that was for the benefit of all of our residents. I think in the same vein, we should be uniting to support this motion. It actually does say, if you read it, it asks the Leader of the Council to highlight the challenge for our residents, which is what he's going to do, which is what you asked for in your original motion. But you want to make this an emotive subject for your own political purposes. It's taken you 5 minutes from changing your party to go to Reform to come in here and disrupt this chamber. And I think you should all be ashamed of yourselves. Vote for this motion.
Members, if I may, there is a 60-minute time rule around motion debates. We are now just over that 60 minutes. So you are now coming to the end of your debate. So you will go to the chairman.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Chairman, I'm happy to just go straight to the vote. Thank you very much.
Okay. Going straight to the vote now. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions?
Chairman, it's 24 for, 11 against and 8 abstentions. Thank you. So the vote is carried.
Next item, number 13, recommendations from the Cabinet. There are none. Item 14, reports submitted to the Council by the Overview and Scrutiny Committees. There are none. Item 15, report of the Chief Executive, A2 appointment of a Tendring District Council substitute representative to serve when required on the Tendring Colchester Borders Gardens Community Joint Committee, pages 41 to 44. Mark Stevenson. In the light of the above, is now appoint a member to act as a substitute member of the TCBGC JC when required. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to give my sincere thanks to Maria Fowler, who's put herself forward for this position. My apologies, Chair. I had to move it as well. So I'm going to move it, and as per what I just said. Thank you.
Seconded, Chair.
Any other nominations? The vote, please. All those in favour? And against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Sixteen, questions pursuant to the Council's Procedure Rule 11.2, pages 45 to 46. Councillor Chris Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following the Cabinet decision on the 26th of July relating to the future of the Careline service, many Careline customers fear that the decision has already been made and that the current consultation is merely a smokescreen to privatise the service by the back door. What reassurances can the portfolio holder give to concerned Careline customers that the Cabinet will take note of the outcome of the current consultation, listen to the concerns of service users who are worried that a change in service provider could lead to an increase in costs, reduction in service, and have a detrimental impact on their quality of life? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Gina Pacey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, for your question regarding the future of Careline. As you will be aware from my report to Cabinet on the 26th of July, the Council is going through a very detailed consultation exercise prior to any decisions being made regarding the future of the Careline service. For many years, the Careline service has been a success story for both residents and Tendring District Council. However, following the deep dive exercise that commenced in June 2023, it's become apparent that there are other providers in the market, both in the public sector and the private sector, that offer comparable service for a similar price or offer a free service, such as Essex Council, if their eligibility criteria is met. The July Cabinet report also noted challenges with staff recruitment and retention, which impact the Council's ability to maintain the consistent and high-quality service we want to deliver. It would be remiss of me not to undertake this review, as the best value guidance for all councils clearly states that councils must strive for continuous improvement and transformation. Despite Careline being an important service for those who use it, change to the telecare market and the increased costs alongside recruitment difficulties leaves me with no alternative but to look at what is in the best interests of residents going forward. The consultation exercise is still being undertaken. 1,902 letters have been sent to customers and a further 1,524 to their next of kin. Responses are being received, and I would like to reassure you that they will be carefully considered before I present my next report to Cabinet in November. I have been made aware of some calls from customers requesting support in completion of the consultation form, and I have requested officers make available one-to-one support if required. If in November Cabinet is minded to make a decision to cease the service, we have also set aside $300,000 for officers to support residents with transitional arrangements, moving them across to an alternative provider of their choosing. Part of this funding will also be made available for human resources support to aid the dedicated staff who work in Careline through the necessary processes should this decision be taken. I would like to take this opportunity to request that all councillors encourage their residents to respond to the consultation and to reassure our current customers that their views will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the portfolio holder for a prompt reply, and we look forward to the report going to Cabinet in November and to see what the outcomes are.
Item 17, urgent matters to date. There are none. And the next one is the date of the next scheduled meeting of the council, Tuesday the 26th of November 2024 at 7:30. I declare the meeting closed. Have a good
Standing.